Okay, we are live. Hello, Irma. How are you?
I'm fabulous. I'm always happy when I get to see you.
Me too. It's been way too long. And
Yes.
I am so happy to welcome you to this fierce conversation today. I've had the pleasure over the last year of just having such honest and vulnerable dialogue with women leaders, women professionals who are making fierce decisions every single day. And after having read your book, the WinX formula, which we'll talk about today, I I wanted to really concentrate and have a conversation today around supporting women in making these fierce decisions, which is sometimes could be paralyzing, and it prevents women from really moving forward in their lives. And also, a lot of the women that are going to listen to this today are leaders who run organizations, who run teams, and I know that you have so much experience using your framework and your formula to support people in being their best. So before we go any further, I want to share with everyone who you are. And so everyone listening today, Irma Parone is an award-winning author, keynote speaker, and strategic advisor for employers leading positive and high-value service for their customers. So that's just the very short version of who Irma is. And Irma, I want to give you the space if there's anything else that you'd like to share about yourself in letting everybody know who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you. I mean, I was a leader for many more years than I ever want to admit to any audience, but I had the opportunity to lead groups of 1,500 people, 2,000 people more, and really learned a lot about the dynamics of getting one team on the same train moving in the same direction. And between that and having some amazing people that I worked for and with, and even some people that worked for me, I learned from everybody. And continuing my education and doing all the little things that helped me grow. Every year I say, I am not going to invest in any more education. And every year I keep doing it. I guess I'm a little bit of an addict. I don't know,
Well,
but I just love what I do. Yeah.
I love that, and thank you for sharing it. And I know that you and I share the love of strengths, right? Strengths
Oh, I
finder,
love it.
and knowing
Yes.
what our top five strengths. And it's been a while, so I can't remember, but I know that my number one strength is learner. And you know that if we overinvest in our strengths, it becomes a weakness. And so sometimes we can be learning and learning and learning, but we never take action on the learning. But part of using and leveraging our strengths is also just acknowledging that if it is in our top five, top 10, it's really something that brings us joy, that helps us to grow and thrive. And so I don't know if you remember, but is learner one of your top strengths?
It is not. It's not one of my top 5. I don't remember where it falls. I mean, I
Yeah,
probably should do it again. Maybe that shifted, but
maybe.
I'm always learning about what I'm doing now,
Gotcha.
because I keep taking things from one step to the next step to the next
Yes.
step and getting better at speaking. And there's so much that I know and I can help people with the people side of the business and high value culture and service and leadership and accountability and stuff, but then how to present that in a manner
Yeah.
that really speaks to people,
Yes. And
and then
creates an
putting together
impact for
maybe
them.
a course. And I can't stop. I need to stop. I'm addicted. Monique, help
You're
me.
addicted. Well, you're addicted to helping people, is what I'm hearing, right? And
Yeah,
so
I
part
love
of the
that.
way that you support others and help them to make positive change and create impact in their work and in their organizations is by helping yourself, so that you know what kind of frameworks to teach, what kind of wisdom to share, and tools to help them become effective. So that's amazing. So with that, let's jump right into your fierce moment. You know, the where we start with these fierce conversations is inviting you to take us back to a time. It could be recent or, further back in time, where you felt like you were fierce for yourself. You stood in your value. You made a difficult decision that was uncomfortable. You finally stood up for yourself or shared your voice in a new way. It could be so many different things. What was a moment that you felt was fierce for you?
Well, there were a couple. So the first one, and I hadn't even thought about this before, was when I quit my job.
Yeah.
I mean, I never even took more than 3 weeks off when I had a baby. So I'm
Yeah.
a workaholic, to say the least.
Yes.
I love what I do. Yeah, I know. I know you.
You know me.
I love
I'm
what I
right there with
do.
you. Yeah.
Right. My mother got sick and I moved her down to Florida from Pennsylvania, and she had dementia and she was confused. And I was traveling and I called my boss one day and said, I'll give you whatever notice you need, but I gotta go. 2 months
Yeah.
later, I was unemployed.
Wow.
So that was for my senior vice president job. But then where that took me,
Yeah.
I mean, everything works out for a reason, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
It aligns with the stars or whatever it's supposed to be.
Yes. For me,
You know
that's
better
definitely
than
part
I
of it.
do all that.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I was leaving, one of my fellow vice presidents called me and he said, you know, we're going to miss you. You have a very powerful way of looking at things at all angles, from the customer side, from the employee side, from the company side, and coming up with solutions that meet all three of those. I never really thought about that
Yeah.
until I did, you know, and when I put my business together, I thought, but I really need to help employers all over the world learn how to work together and win together. I was very successful in my career because I was able to connect those dots and able to find solutions that, you know, people say, well, I have to give too much or I want too much or whatever, but that's not what it's about.
No.
There are a lot of ways to find solutions if you have
Yes.
the right formula and the heart to get you there.
Yeah.
So you've
Definitely.
got to want to,
Hmm.
and you know, put a few things together. And then that's when I wrote my book.
Wow. And I love that story because so many times, women like us who are go-getters, who are constantly learning, bringing all that forward into the world, and self-subscribed workaholics, we can get caught up in not um, kind of allowing other people to share with us where we're doing a great job, right? We don't pause long enough to ask for that feedback. Can you share with me what I'm doing great? When I'm at my best, what does that look like? And it sounded like you didn't ask for it, but someone really stood up and said, you need to know this about yourself. And you
And I
actually
don't even
took that
know if he
in.
remembers that I don't even know if he remembers that conversation. I mean, it was kind of just a little flowing short thing,
Right.
you
What a
know, I
gift
didn't really
though.
think about it. Yeah. And then I thought back, well, my old boss, because I also managed labor relations
Hmm.
in an intense environment. And I said, I don't know anything about labor relations. So they sent me to school. I went to Cornell. And he said, but you're really good with looking at both sides of it. I just never connected all those dots.
Right, right. Beautiful.
So
And
yeah,
so,
I mean, I have as many weaknesses, everybody else, probably a lot more. But you know, those are, I think, my strengths are.
amazing. And so this led to your book. Tell us a little bit about WinX.
So WinX, big mistake. I spell it WINX, no space.
Okay.
Wanted to be different. It's a
Yeah.
little hard to find, but it's a problem solving model to win exponentially with customers, employees, and your bottom line.
Yeah.
So it's really a business book,
Yep.
although it relates, you know, there are stories in there, personal stories, a lot of research, you know, a lot of different things. Well, you've read it.
I have, and I have to say that it really it took me back to my MBA days
Did
because
it?
yeah, I'm a business nerd at heart. I love research. I love case studies. And you did such an incredible job, Irma, with really pulling out real life stories, your own, but also things that corporations have gone through, small businesses
Right.
have gone through, that really help us to understand how important having a problem solving framework is. And what it also did for me, because right now I'm an independent business owner. I'm a solo practitioner, as are many of the women and individuals who are going to listen to this podcast. And as I was reading it, I was looking at the business aspect because, you and I both work and consult with businesses and teams, but I also work one-on-one with women who get stuck, have such a difficult time figuring out what decision to make, how to move forward. And it can be years before they can trust themselves enough to actually move it forward. And your framework, I felt, really brings in kind of like a black and white resource. Let's take out the emotions of what we're feeling and follow this process. And it can really help you get clear about what the problem is, how you're holding yourself back, like what's at the root of the cause of the problem, and just kind of taking it step by step to become fierce enough to move forward and really make a decision.
Yes, decisions are difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
And
And
that's why the
one thing you said in
model,
the book that really stood out for me was decisions are emotional.
right. And
And yes,
that's fact. I mean,
yes.
that's based on scientific research. But when I read that, even though I know my process,
Mhm.
I thought my decisions aren't emotional. But you know what? Unless you really use a framework and make sure you're taking the emotion out, or recognize this is how I'm feeling right now. Am I making the right move? Or am I looking at, do I need to dig a little deeper, look at more facts, look at it from a different viewpoint? That can get you into big trouble.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely. So when someone is struggling with making a decision, they can't see the forest, through the
Through the
tree.
trees, right?
What's one way that you support them in kind of building that clarity through your framework?
Well, one of the steps is evaluate the impact. Now, a lot of people think if I don't make a decision, I don't have to worry about it, right?
Yes.
Because I can't make a mistake. Here's the problem with that theory. You have made a decision.
Yeah.
And your decision is to stay with status quo. Now, what is the impact of status quo to you? What is the impact to your customers?
Yes.
To your employees, to your company, to your family?
Yes.
I tell a lot about a guy that quit a job. He had a great job, but the grass is always greener. He went out because there's so many jobs, and he left his company on bad terms, but the grass wasn't greener. He wanted to come back, and guess what?
He burned the bridge.
So, right. So it's looking at the impact that you're having, even if you think it's not going to impact, why did he care about his employer? Well, he should have, because long-term it hurt him, it hurt his family, because he was kind of stuck.
Yes.
So it's really, to answer your question, the biggest takeaway, if anybody's watching that, is to don't forget that a no decision is a decision.
Yes.
And to look at the impact that no decision is making, because there's an impact.
Yeah.
Right.
That gave me chills. And that's really it. Because I hear this all the time. I don't have choice. I don't have control. And the fact of the matter is that we do. We always have control, and we can always make a choice. Sometimes our choice is to not make a choice. Sometimes our choice is to not look at the problem, not uncover what's at the root, which is emotional. And if we're able, it sounds like, to step into our power and say just enough to reflect and say, okay, let me look at this ugly monster in the room instead of ignoring it, and break it down, figure out how it's going to impact me, how it's going to impact my team, how it's going to impact my future, how it's going to impact my spouse, my children, my family, whatever else is in your arena. It could, it's like we pull the shade away, or we take off our glasses and we can see things in a new way that can help us understand that maybe the impact is not as scary as we thought it would be.
It's really not, because then if you go through, there's a lot of different problem solving options in the book.
Yeah.
And once you go through the options and figure out a few a few options, right? Mm-hmm. Then you look at the book gives you a downloadable form
Yep.
that you could, actually enter information, you could reuse it, you could share it, whatever. And then you could look at what's the impact of keeping it the way it is
Mhm.
versus the impact of these other options. And then it makes it much easier to make a decision.
Yeah. And I get it. Listen, I'm the first to say we have choice. We have more control than we think. There are some scenarios where we don't have control, right? But the control comes in for us when we're able to just make a decision. And sometimes the most powerful decision is to do nothing in some scenarios. But in those scenarios where we're really stuck and we can look back and it's a year later and nothing has changed, that's when we really need to get tough with ourselves.
Right. And there usually is always a decision you can make.
Yes.
I mean, when people say there is absolutely nothing I can do, I challenge anybody to call me, because even if it's stepping outside of the zone you're in,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Heinz ketchup.
Right.
Just talk about Heinz ketchup. If you
Yes.
remember the story,
I do. I loved
they
it.
were stuck. They were in trouble. They couldn't sell their ketchup because people had a hard time getting it out of the glass bottle.
Right.
And they went to the shampoo industry or the
Yeah.
beauty industry. And they found us. So there's so many different ways to look at a problem
Yes.
and find something that you could do. I mean, if you're,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, there are some things, but I'll tell you, I have not found one yet
Yeah.
where somebody walked away and said, there's still absolutely nothing I could do.
Yeah. One of the best things, best resources that I found, and it was by accident. It was when I still was working at FIU, and I partnered with the dean of the business school and supported her in some design thinking workshops
Ah,
that we did for organizations. And let me tell you, pick up a design thinking book, everyone out there. It's a business tool, but I also have found that it's the tools that we use to get out of our normal thinking mind and thinking habits really
right.
help us to create those solutions. And there's so much fun, so much fun. It makes it lighthearted. It makes it easy instead of difficult and challenging and painful. And so design thinking is one of those tools that I just think also helps us to get into that space where we can find more solutions than we normally would
I
otherwise.
think I actually took a class on that once. I've got to
Yeah.
look back through my, me, I'm always taking some kind of training,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I've
And we
got to
forget.
look back through my stuff and see what I could find. But
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
fun.
fun looking
It
at
is
all these
fun.
different options, and
Yes.
I
So
just
Irma,
love it.
I want to talk about, first of all, I want to say that I love the part of your mission that is about you impacting people at every level. I
Mhm.
feel like that's very hard to find. In our world of organizational development, of leadership, we see a lot of people that, maybe will only work with leaders, will only work with executives. And yet we know that a lot of the disengagement and the pain is at the lower levels.
Right.
And so what has been your experience working with individuals at all levels, and what are you seeing as the challenges that they're dealing with today, kind of post COVID?
Well, I will tell you, when I first start working with a company, I want to work with top leadership, because if they're not bought in, and I love working with women.
Yeah.
I absolutely love working with women because women care,
Yeah.
and that's why sometimes they have a hard time making decisions, because they care so much that they don't want to make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
But they're really passionate about helping people. But very often when I first go in, they'll say, well, you don't know my industry is different. All industries are different,
Yeah.
but yet they have the same issues, right?
Yes.
So, I find the wrong people when I dig in and look at the data often. Now, yeah, we all need to do better at finding good people, and there's a way to get better at that. But very often it's not really who they find, it's how they keep them.
Oof.
What do they bring them in and they're so desperate to have somebody, they throw them into the wolves. And
Yes.
these people are uncomfortable, and there's so many things you can do to wrap your arms around these people
Yeah.
at every level of the organization, but you have to be working with every level of the organization to do that.
Right.
So if I'm a
And to
frontline
sustain.
employee and I work for you, you're the boss, I might love you. But if I have to go and work next to Jane Doe every day, I've got to love her too.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
how do I connect? How do you connect me with Jane Doe?
Yeah.
And then how do you train me and develop me and make sure that I'm successful and hold me accountable? That's very important, but help me get there.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
saying, well, Irma's not the right person. Now sometimes that's true. And once you determine that, then you've got to get them off the bus.
You got to get them off the bus or put them in the right seat. Right.
Correct.
Yeah. And so that's something that a lot of companies, especially, I work with a lot of small businesses, and they're at that point where they're like, wow, we only have a few people working for us. We have to bring more people in. And once they start growing, what's missing is that structure. That
Right.
structure of making sure that I'm wrapping my arms around each person. I know who they are. I know what their strengths are. I can appropriately put them in the right seat on the right bus, and make sure that they are a culture fit, make sure that they've got a pathway to success. Otherwise, we're going to get into these situations where they don't feel connected. They don't feel like they're seen or heard. And then we're going to have problems losing people and retaining good people.
Right. And service issues.
Yeah.
Right. They're not performing their jobs. They really don't care.
Right.
There's so many little things that make a big difference.
Yeah.
Little things that make a huge impact. I'm working with a company now that you've just described. They grew pretty fast. They went from a few people to quite a few people. And they're struggling because they don't have a process. And the person who knows the operation the best says, oh, they don't need training. Well, they do need training.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how much experience somebody has in your same industry, you want them to do things the way you want it.
Yeah.
And no matter what they told you, you want to see that they're doing things the way you want to do it. And very, very often they're not.
Right.
And they don't even know. It's so funny, Monique, you would crack up. I'll talk to employees and say, what do you think your main job is? Why are you here? And then I'll ask their boss. Not even close.
Wow.
So it's a lot of barriers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's so much fun. I love this.
It is.
Yeah.
I can tell. I totally
I love it.
that you love it. And what I'm sensing is that your process of starting with leadership and taking it all the way down to every single person is one that creates sustainable change.
Right.
And that's really important, because you and I know that sometimes, training and development is just a Band-Aid. So I'm going to bring you in to do a workshop, and great, we're all going to be excited. And then they do nothing about continuing the work.
Right. They go right back to where they were.
Right back to old patterns and habits.
Yeah. And I'm working with a new company in Miami, one that I want to talk to you about later separately. Sure. And that's exactly, I've met now. We had an employee impact session at every level.
Right.
Now I'm getting to the higher levels again. I started there.
Yeah.
And then when you talk to the employees at the front level about what the problems are, and you talk to the people at the higher level about what the problems are, they don't see the same thing at all.
Right.
So how do you fix something you don't know?
Exactly. Exactly.
And even if they're wrong, let's say the employees are wrong. Well, that's their perception.
Yes.
So what do we do about that?
Exactly. Yeah. And
again, it's getting one team on the same train, moving in the same direction. I've said that all my life.
Right. And understanding what every unique person's perception is, whether you like it or not, it's their perception. And if it's a false perception, it doesn't matter. It still creates impact in the organization, positive or negative. So for some of the small business owners who are going to be listening to this, or entrepreneurs who don't have a big budget, are struggling with figuring out what's one small thing, one first step that I can take to build that connection, to wrap my arms around all of the individuals in my organization, which is probably just a few in the beginning. Yeah. What's one thing that they should be, moving on, pushing forward in their organization?
Have a conversation.
I love it.
And,
So
and I
easy.
mean, as simple as that sounds, I don't mean saying, hey, how are you doing? Welcome to the team. I
No.
mean saying, Monique, let's just chat.
Yeah.
How are you?
Right.
What's going on in your life? What do you love to do outside of here? I
Yeah.
had an employee who he was a new employee. I had about 1,500 employees, right? So I don't remember everybody, but this guy was so excited about this new puppy. He was so excited about this new puppy. The next time I went back, it was in Orlando, it was in Tampa. Next time I went back to that account where he was, I said, hey, how's that puppy? And he
Oh,
was so excited. I pulled out I stopped and got a $10 little dog bone or something.
yeah. Yeah.
You would have thought I gave this guy $1 million.
Wow. Wow. He felt
It's the
seen. He felt
little
heard. Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
It's the little things that make the and then checking back, oh, your
Yes.
mother's sick. How's she doing?
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to make light of those, but it's
No.
understanding here's where I am, here's where I need to be. But that personal connection, if
Yeah.
you want to know how to pull people together, start with the heart.
Totally. And that takes me back to, well, first of all, through the pandemic, what we really have understood is that as leaders, we need to really be compassionate, right? It's kind of brought us all back to that space where we need to just get simple about focusing on the really important things. And it starts with being compassionate. And,
Right.
again, it takes me back to this study that Gallup did that talks about what we really look for in leaders. And what we're really looking for in leaders is, number one, we want to trust them. And we need for them
Absolutely.
to be compassionate.
Right.
And if we don't
But you know
have
what?
those two things,
Yeah, I think the problem with a lot of business owners is they think that means tolerant.
mm-hmm.
And those are two
Two
different
different
words with
things.
two different meanings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being compassionate and understanding and being able to talk to people at their level is a whole different thing than saying, okay, you could do whatever you want because I feel
Sure.
bad for you.
Sure.
That's just not the same thing.
No. It's bringing the
Right.
human back into the
Right.
organization,
But a
right?
lot of people at higher levels don't see the difference.
Sure.
And when you start talking about compassion, they think, oh, you just want to, let people get away with things,
Right.
which is as far away from the truth as you'll ever get with me.
Yeah.
Because again, it's creating very high value, very high
Mhm.
standards, but then supporting them to get there. Right.
Absolutely.
And if they can't get there, getting them off the bus.
Yeah. And in the leadership trainings that I do, we look at two different aspects. Every leader has to focus on the relational aspect of things,
Right.
okay, which is the relationship with him or herself, first of all, um, and then the relationship with people. But then the second aspect of being an effective leader is the tactical things, and that's where
Right.
those conversations or actions around, if this person is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, if they're not the right person, then we have to exit them out of the organization, right? So
Right.
they really are two different things: relationship versus tactical.
Right.
And as leaders, we have to
And
look at both of
you're
them.
very good at bringing those together.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I've seen you train. You're very good at that.
Thank you. Well, I've learned
Yeah.
the hard way. I share with people that when I first went into the workforce and started managing and building my team, I was more of an amiable leader. I led from the heart. I was super compassionate, but that prevented me from being tough and making the tough decisions
Right.
and giving
Right.
the feedback that nobody wanted to hear and I didn't want to give. And
Right.
I'll never forget when my boss came to me and she said, I value that you're compassionate, but you have to be tough. A leader has to be tough, and a leader has to say what needs to be said. And that was the most important feedback that I ever received early on in my career. And that led me to changing my leadership style. I'm still amiable. I'm still compassionate. That's never going to change. But now I'm also very decisive, which is important for
Right.
organizations.
Right.
So yeah, we learn over time, and getting that feedback from others is really very, very important. So I love this. I love this conversation so far. We've talked about so many things. Before we start wrapping up, Irma, I just want to ask you like, what's next for you? Like, what's another big goal that you have? I mean, publishing a book is not an easy thing to do. And it's something that really needs to be celebrated. So I want to celebrate you for that.
Thank you.
And because I know that it takes a lot of hard work and courage to put your voice out there and to get it done, check it off the list. But what's next? What's another big goal for you?
Well, I think I had mentioned that, if I could, before I die, get my message across the globe, right?
Yes.
And helping organizations help every person at every level of their organization work better together and win better together.
Mm,
So what I'd like to do next, what I'm working on now is a TED Talk, like a
wow.
TEDx.
Okay.
So, keep your fingers crossed for me.
Yes, I
Hopefully the
will.
stars will align and I'll, get the right help that I need and put together something that will be accepted. And then once it's out in the universe, we'll see what happens. But that then I hope will get me on more corporate stages
Yes.
to talk about it. I mean, the book sales are great. I love the book sales and I love the reviews, and thank you for your wonderful review. I'm very
You're so
grateful.
welcome.
And that's how the message gets out.
Yes.
That's why I keep putting, the books aren't that expensive because I don't want
No.
them to be too expensive. I want
Yeah.
people to be able to afford them. My biggest goal is not making the money on the book. It's getting the message out there and helping the people
Yes.
really see how to win big with each other. So
Amazing.
that's my hope.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. Yeah. So go get the book, especially for those of you who are business owners, who are entrepreneurs, who are going to be building teams. It's just a great resource. And it's the kind of book that you also want to give to others in your organizations who are helping you lead so that it can trickle down, right? Because that's what we've been talking
Right.
about today. And
Right.
I printed out all of the handouts at
Did
the back.
you?
I did.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't need to recreate that. You've given it to us as a tool. And so I really value that. And that's what business people need. They need the tools like in a moment's notice so that they don't have to keep creating and spend their time creating that. Um, you know, and part of what I do as both a business life coach and also a spirituality coach is I really like to bring together, both of them to help us create a strong foundation for success, for balance, for flow, being able to accomplish our goals with clarity, with decisiveness, but also be able to really design the kind of lives that are help us to achieve peace and prosperity. So I like to talk spirituality, but we can also just look at habits, right? Like it's really important for us as women who wear many different roles and are busy trying to create impact in the world to kind of take care of ourselves, right? And create those boundaries, create those rituals or habits that support us. I know how difficult it can be, but what have you found to be supportive for yourself when we talk about habits or rituals?
As far as life balance?
Yeah, we can definitely look at life balance. I think that that's one of those things that people don't believe is achievable.
Yeah.
I
So first of all, I call you because you're amazing at that.
Thank you.
As far as my own habits, I help people with time management. So we look at what are your 3 top goals. And when you say my family, we put your family in your schedule.
Right.
Some people have a work schedule and a home schedule and a school schedule. I say you have one schedule.
Yep.
You make sure you put your priorities in your schedule.
Yes.
And if you do that and you're looking at it and you go to work and you're so busy and you say, okay, what are my priorities?
Yep.
Well, yes, you have to get your work done. Again, I'm a high achiever.
Yes.
And I expect high, but I also know that if people are not happy at home, they're not happy at work.
They aren't.
So how can we give them, again, it's working and winning together.
Right.
I want them to want to come back to work. I want to care about their home life. I want them to do their job.
Yes.
And if we can't find a way for them to do both, then it might not work.
Yeah.
However, in most cases, if we focus in the right areas and if you plan accordingly, it'll work.
Right.
So that's in addition to calling you.
Prioritizing. Yeah.
Yeah,
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 I believe in that tremendously. And I've gotten to a place in my life where I prioritize my spiritual foundation, which is my morning routine. And I joke about it because I know that it seems absolutely ridiculous to most people, but one of my highest values is freedom. And so being able to leave the workforce like you did too, build my own business, the what was behind that was my freedom. And part of creating freedom in my life is being able to take as much time as I choose every morning to ground myself, to align myself to my priorities, to feeling grounded and balanced. And so I'm one of those individuals who does believe that balance is possible,
right.
and being able to prioritize what's really most important is key. This is the first year in a while where I only have two goals this year. I don't have any other goals. I just have two goals. And I can tell you that in doing that and prioritizing it in that way has helped me to breathe easy, to not get flustered. And it's easier to make decisions because I'm just looking at two things,
Right.
you know? And so I just invite all of us to, use those habits of prioritization, of really defining what your values are as well, and kind of living and finding balance that way.
Right.
Um, but yeah, when I started with my morning routine, it started um, with an hour, and now it's 3 hours
Is
every
it
morning.
really?
Every morning I wake up early, and I wake up at 6:30, and starting at 6:30 until 9:30, I don't do anything but those things that are of priority to my, spiritual foundation. And then I start work at 10. And there, of course, I'm flexible. There are days where I need to switch it up,
Of course. Right.
but for the most part, I would say 80% I'm tried and true to that. And it's changed. It's changed my life in many ways.
Oh,
So
I'm sure. You're amazing. You are. You're,
well, thanks,
I am,
Irma.
I'm a big fan of yours.
And I'm a
So
big fan of yours. And with that, I really want to say just thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your book with us. And I guess I just want to give you the space, but as we wrap up, if there's anything else, any other advice or wisdom that you want to just land the plane with today and share with.
I guess it's two things. One is whatever you do it deeply.
Okay, yes.
Go deep, not broad. Go deep.
Okay.
And
Ooh,
then we are our decisions.
we are.
If we need to make a change, then we are the result. I am here because of a decision to be here,
Yeah.
as are you, as is everybody else, right?
Yes.
They're where they are today because of decisions they made. So if we are our decisions, let's get better at it.
Yeah.
Look at things differently. Don't get stuck in a pigeonhole.
Yeah.
And, if I could help any of your listeners, it would be my honor.
Thank you so much, Irma. And so with that, what's the best way for everyone to reach out to you, contact you, communicate with
So
you?
if they go to my website, paronegroup.com,
Okay.
Parone, like par one if you're a golfer,
Par one.
paronegroup.com.
Okay.
That has, you can get my book there, or you can go
Okay.
on Amazon. You'll see my website. There's a
Excellent.
contact me page. That's probably the easiest way to reach me.
Wonderful.
Or they can call you and you can
Okay.
share whatever information you have on me.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you, Irma. This has been such a gift. I can't wait to hear back from our listeners and for them to tell me what was impactful for them. And I know it will be. So grateful to you today. And I want to say thank you to all of our listeners, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.